Hello everyone, Darkblane here, back playing some more AFK Arena, and in this video I'm going to look at the Mauler engravings. I just want to see which Mauler heroes do well with the engravings, which heroes just need more than just engravings. Yeah, just to see which hero's Mauler engraving looks good, essentially. So let's get on with the video. Okay, we're starting off with Brutus here, and as always, the engraving is on the bottom two skills here. So we're going to be starting with this one. The Brutal Defiance. Brutus's damage output is raised according to how low his health falls. Brutus' attack rating can be increased by up to 90%. And then down here, attack rating is increased by up to 100%. And haste is increased up to 25%. So if I look at the engravings for this first skill here for Brutus, if I look at the first engraving, attack ratings increased by up to 120% and haste is increased by up to 28%. So going back to this skill, it's increasing attack rating by 20% and it's increasing the haste by 3%. So yeah, that one sounds pretty average. I mean, the haste would be pretty good, but overall I don't think it's going to really do anything for Brutus. And looking at the second one, the Last Grasp. When Brutus is dealt a fatal blow, he is able to retain 1 health point and is immune to all subsequent damage for 4 seconds. The ability can only be used once. And with level 3, it goes up to 8 seconds here. So, with the second ability for the engraving, when Last Grasp is triggered, Brutus recovers 800 energy points. So he's able to gain 800 energy points, which is almost a full bar of energy, not quite a full bar. And yeah, he's only able to do this once though, because the Last Grasp is only able to be triggered once. So he's only going to gain 800 energy points once, which, yeah, I don't know if that one's really gonna do anything either. I mean, I don't really feel like his ultimate ability really does that much damage, to be honest. I mean, having him ult and do more damage than when he wouldn't be able to otherwise sounds pretty good, but overall, I don't know if that one will really do anything for Brutus. Yeah, overall, Brutus's engravings sound pretty average so far compared to the other factions. Moving on to the second one, which we have K-Sauce. Looking at K-Sauce's first ability, Throwing Axe. K-Sauce throws a war axe toward his enemies that causes 130% damage twice to all enemies in its path. K-Sauce has a 70% chance to catch the axe on its return. If he successfully catches it, his attack speed will be temporarily increased. And level 3 damage is increased 160% with the damage. And looking at the first engraving skill for K-Sauce, damage is increased 170%, which that is a 10% increase, which that is below average pretty much. Damage I would kind of expect to be at around 20% increase with the engraving, but this one's only at 10. So that's below average. That most definitely will not do anything for K-Sauce. Looking at his second skill here, Rabid Thirst. All friendly targets have their life leech attributes increased by 15 points, and with level 3, increase life leech attributes of all allies by 18 points. So, looking at the K-Sauce second skill, increase life leech attributes of all allies by 21 points. I feel like life leech is not that great of an attribute. It gives your heroes health, but honestly, I feel like it doesn't give your heroes that much health. And yeah, I feel like even with a bunch of life leech, your team just pretty much dies a lot of the time. So it's increasing it to 21. So it's increasing it by 3 points, which, yeah, that won't do that much. Yeah, K-Sauces sounds pretty bad right now. And looking right now at Verk is the third one. Poison Vial. Verk lobs a Poison Vial on an enemy, which poisons them for 10 seconds. Poisoned enemies will have their energy recovery rate decreased by 50%, attack rating decreased by 50%, and they will also lose health equal to 50% of Verk's attack rating every second. Poison effects cannot be stacked, and if an already poisoned enemy is targeted again by this ability, the duration of the poison's effect shall be extended. And with level 3, poison enemies lose health equal to 70% of Verk's attack rating per second. So yeah, looking at the engravings here, poison enemies lose health equal to 80% of Verk's attack rating per second. So it's really only increasing this by 10% here, which I don't think that's really going to do much for Verk. Only a 10% increase, so I don't think that's really going to do too much. Looking at this one, poison traps. At the beginning of battles, Verk sets poison traps behind himself and his frontline allies. Traps are activated when enemies are in close proximity to them and cause any nearby enemies to become stunned for 3 seconds and poisoned for 10 seconds. This ability poison effects are consistent with the ability Poison Vial. Enemies which are immune to control abilities will not trigger the traps. And enemies are stunned for 5 seconds with level 3. Looking at the engravings, the second skill. After 20 seconds of battle, Verk will sets poison traps in the center of the battlefield and behind himself. I believe that looks like a typo there for that one, but yeah, after 20 seconds he will set poison traps in the center of the battlefield and behind himself. I don't know if this will do too much. I mean, it sounds like a pretty cool ability, but I don't really know if that one will do too much for Verk. Yeah, I don't know if that one will do too much, but that sounds pretty cool though. That plus 60. Yeah, overall, I don't think Verk's engraving is really going to do anything for him. And looking on to Nemisu. Offensive Totem. Place a totem of ridicule behind an enemy. When the totem is placed, deal 120% of attack power and AoE damage and mock nearby enemies for 2 seconds, forcing them to use normal attacks against it. Totems of ridicule have the same defensive rating as Nemisu and HP equal to 650% of his attack power. Offensive Totem heals itself with 10% health per second, and damage is increased to 150%. Overall, I feel like people really only use people really only want the offensive totems for that, for just to have the enemies attack it. So I don't really feel like this one's really going to do much. Mock duration is extended to 3 seconds. Yeah, it's only extending it by a second. I don't feel like that's really going to do anything. Yeah, I mean they're going to attack it for a longer duration, but yeah, but I don't really know if 1 second is really going to cut it for Nemisu here. And Fanaticism, I don't really know how to pronounce that. Nemisu buffs the ally with the highest attack power, granting them 40 haste and 20% normal attack speed for 10 seconds. Haste increase to 50, normal attack speed increase to 30%. Effects are increased to 12 seconds, and yeah, looking at the second engraving here. Haste increased to 60, and normal attack speed increased to 40. So it's increasing the haste by 1, and the attack speed, I believe, by 10%. Yeah, I mean, that haste and attack speed could be pretty good. Could be a pretty good thing. Haste does a lot for a hero. No matter how much haste you're getting, it does quite a bit. It does something for your team. So yeah, this one seems that one seems pretty good. I mean, it's only 10 haste, but haste can mean a life or death for your team. You know, overall, I think the Misu's sounds pretty average overall. Yeah, definitely one I don't think I'll be going for, but for Namisu, but I feel like it's pretty average. And moving on to Screg, Iron Skin. Enemies deal less damage to Screg the closer they get to him. Damage reduction is at its maximum when enemies are within Screg's striking range. Damage received can be reduced by up to 40%, and at level 3, damage reduction is increased up to 60%. So looking at Screg's Engraving, his first skill. When enemies are within striking range of Screg and dealing damage to him, they will lose 8 haste points for 3 seconds. Ability can be stacked up to 3 times. So, at maximum, the enemies will lose 24 haste points for 3 seconds, which that could do something situationally. I feel like that could do something. I mean, it's only decreasing it for 3 seconds, so it's not that much of the battle where their haste is being decreased, but I feel like situationally that could work, but we would just have to see with that one though. With the second ability, Stampede, every 8 seconds an iron jaw appears and charges towards the enemy closest to Screg allies side of the battlefield, knocking back and stunning them and any other enemies in its path, dealing 150% damage to them. Damage is increased 180% here with level 3. So looking at the second skill, ability is triggered every 6 seconds. So it's decreasing this ability by 2 seconds. I mean, that'll make Screg do just a little bit more damage, but I don't know if really a 2-second decrease is gonna do anything for a Screg. I don't know if really gonna do anything. It stuns them though. It's stunning enemy heroes more frequently, but yeah, I don't know if 2 seconds is really gonna do anything. Screg's Engraving also seems pretty decent, pretty average as well. And looking to Warwick, Extricate removes all abilities that are negatively affecting Warwick. This ability has a cooldown period of 5 seconds. Level 2, after removing all negative effects, Warwick forms a shield around himself that mitigates 250% of the damage inflicted upon him. Now level 3, the shield damage mitigation effect is strengthened by 350%. So looking at this first ability, this first engraving skill, cooldown time is reduced to 4 seconds for this first one. So it's reduced to 4 seconds, so it's only reducing it by 1 second. That isn't gonna do much for Warwick. I believe Warwick is known for this ability, Bone Breaker. I believe he's known for this one. This is why people use him in bosses, I believe. And looking at Carnal Rage, a passive ability that allows Warwick to build up his rage with each successful attack that he lands on his enemies, allowing him to raise his damage by 2.5%. This ability can be stacked up to 12 times. Warwick regenerates energy over time once ability is fully stacked, and his life leech attributes are greatly increased. Level 3 damage is raised up to 4%. So looking at the engraving here, damage is raised up to 5%. So it's raising it by an additional 1%, which I don't think that's going to do anything. I mean, it raised up to 4% with level 3, which I felt like that was pretty good, but yeah, it's only raising it by an additional 1%, which I don't think Warwick needs. And overall, I feel like Warwick is not really going to need his engraving here. So moving on to Entendre. Let's look at the first skill. Piercing Assault. Entendre throws her spear at the enemy with the highest attack rating, dealing 180% damage to all enemies it penetrates. Entendre then dashes over to the enemy target, after which she receives a shield which exists for 5 seconds that has a value equal to 550% of the target enemy's attack rating, but will not exceed 1000% of her own attack rating. Enemies hit by Entendre's spear are marked by Entendre. Entendre cannot be controlled and ignores enemy dodges while this ability is active. And level 3 damage is increased to 240%. So looking at this first engraving, damage is increased to 260%. So it's increasing it by 20%, which is about average for what I've seen with the other factions there. And knockdown. Entendre uses her spear to swipe at nearby enemies, dealing 180% damage to them, also knocking them down. Meanwhile, Entendre recovers 22% of the health she has already lost. Entendre also recovers an additional 8% of her max health for every enemy that she knocks down. And at level 3, damage is increased to 240%. And looking at the second engraving skill, Entendre recovers an additional 4% of her max health for every enemy she strikes that is marked with a Mark of the Wild. If an enemy is unmarked, they will consequently be marked. So she's gaining 4% of her max health for every enemy she strikes that is marked with this mark. We'll just have to see what this does. I mean, this sounds pretty good. We'll just have to see what if someone builds her to her plus 60. We'll just have to see what that does. Overall, that sounds pretty good. But we'll just have to see. Yeah, and overall, Entendre's engraving sounds pretty decent, pretty average. And looking at Sophia, with her static field, Sophia provides the most forward-positioned ally with an electric aura that lasts for 10 seconds. The electric aura causes 70% damage per second to every enemy standing within its radius. And damage is increased to 90% per second. So, looking at the first engraving for Sophia, let's see here. Damage is increased to 100% per second. So it's increasing it by 10% per second, which might sound like it's below average, but keep in mind that it says 100% per second. So she's able to add 10% more damage per second, which that can actually add up a little bit. So that actually sounds pretty decent, considering that it's only increasing it by 10%. And looking at Spectral Disruption, at the beginning of the battle, Sophia casts a circle enchantment over backline allies. That lasts for 25 seconds. All allies standing within the circle have their attack ratings increased by 16%, and any enemy standing within the circle have their attack ratings reduced by 50%, as well as their haste reduced. And at level 3, damage is increased to 24%. This is pretty much the main reason why people use her in the Sophia Iran comp. That's pretty much the main reason. And looking at this one here, when the enchanted circle disappears, all enemies in the circle are dealt 200% damage and are stunned for 1.5 seconds. Now this one might sound pretty good at first, but keep in mind that this lasts for 25 seconds, which by then I feel like most of the time there are really no enemies in that allied backline area, because with the I feel like with the 5 pull, I feel like most of the time you are able to take down the enemy team before the 25 seconds are up, and if you haven't taken them down by then, they are pretty much not in that area by the time it disappears. So that one could work, I feel, situationally, but overall that one might not work most of the time. And overall, I feel like Sophia's is pretty average, I guess. And looking at Citrana, the next Mauler hero here, with Fire Seeds, Citrana throws Fire Seeds onto an enemy, prioritizes enemies according to the order of their formation numbers. When the Fire Seeds are on the enemy loses 1% of their max health per second. Once the enemy target's health falls below 25%, the Fire Seeds explode, causing 300% AoE damage. Fire Seeds cause the enemies to be stunned for 2.5 seconds. After they explode, Fire Seeds explosion damage is increased to 330%. So looking at the first engraving skill, enemies suffer damage equal to 1.5% of their max health every second. So I believe that's a 0.5% increase, which I don't think that's really going to do much. It's only a 0.5% increase per second. So yeah, I don't think that's going to provide enough damage to make her usable. And Overflow. When an attack or ability inflicts damage on an enemy, the enemy burns for 3 seconds. Enemies that are burning have the healing they receive reduced by 50 and lose the value of health equal to 35% of Citrana's attack rating every second. This ability cannot be stacked. Burning enemies lose a value of health equal to 43% of Citrana's attack rating with the level 3. So looking at her second engraving skill here, energy recovery and burning enemies is reduced by 20%. So it's reducing that by reducing energy recovery and of burning enemies by 20%, which I don't think they have anything about energy recovery. So it's just really decreasing the energy recovery rate of burning enemies by 20. Was it 20%, I believe? Which I feel like that could do something situationally. Yeah, I feel like that could do something situationally, but we would just have to see about that one. Yeah, overall, Citrana's sounds maybe a little bit below average for now, but we'll just have to see about that plus 60. And moving on to the next one, Titus. Not to be confused with Titus, the celestial hero, Titus. The first ability, Battle Howl. Titus lets out a ferocious howl that terrifies his enemies, causing them to flee from his vicinity for 5 seconds. After howling, Titus's movement speed is increased by 35% and his attack rating is increased by 20% for 10 seconds. Attack ratings increase by up to 30%, and nearby enemies also receive a movement speed and attack rating increase. Nearby allies receive that. So let's look at the first engraving for Titus. Increased movement speed and attack rating effects last for 13 seconds. So if we go back to this one, lasts for 13 seconds, which I believe is the 3-second increase, which that might be able to do something. I mean 3 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but that could do something situationally. I feel like, though. I mean, you're attacking the enemies faster, essentially, with the movement speed, and the attack rating is also still being increased for an additional 3 seconds. That's doing extra damage, so we'll just have to see about that one, though. Savagery. Titus viciously and persistently attacks an enemy whose health is lower than 50% of its maximum until they are slain. While using this ability, the attack rating of Titus's normal attacks is increased by 35%. Life leech level is raised by 40 while pursuing a weakened enemy, and attack rating is increased by up to 50%. So looking at the second engraving skill, when the enemy that Titus is persistently attacking dies, Titus recovers 40% of the health he's already lost, and his haste is increased by 30 points for 6 seconds. Okay, that actually sounds really good. He's able to recover health and also gains 30 haste points for 6 seconds. That sounds really good. That sounds really good. I think that plus 60 on Titus's engraving actually sounds really good. I feel like Titus's engraving might actually be the first very good one that I've seen for the Maulers. And moving on to Drez. Tactical Retreat. When Drez's health falls below 50% for the first time, he leaves the battlefield for 5 seconds, during which time he recovers 100 energy points per second while away from the battlefield. Using Drez's ultimate ability will cause him to prematurely return to the battlefield. If Drez's ultimate ability, Deadly Ambush, is already being used when he disappears from the battlefield, he will continue to use it once he returns. After returning to the battlefield, Drez's attack rating is increased by 40% and his life leech is increased by 40 points for 15 seconds. So looking at the first ability, Drez recovers 120 energy points while he is away from the battlefield. So he's recovering an additional 20 energy points, which I mean, the more energy points you're receiving, the faster you're able to ult, so... But that also means, if he's not using his ultimate ability, that means the faster he will not be using this ability here. So it's kind of like a win. It's kind of like you're gaining something, but you're also losing something at the same time. I feel like it'd be up to you to decide which one you would want more. The energy and decreasing the time he's retreating, or if you want him to retreat more, but gain less energy points though. We'll have to see how that one works out. Rabid Slice. Drez's crit damage amplification is increased by 40 points, and his attack speed is increased by 15 points. During the use of his ultimate ability, Deadly Ambush, Drez receives an additional 25 attack speed points. Drez's crit damage amplification is increased by 50 points, and his attack speed is increased by 20 points. During the use of his ultimate ability, Deadly Ambush, Drez receives an additional 30 attack speed points. So that's a lot to take in from that ability. Let's see about this one. When Drez's ultimate ability, Deadly Ambush, deals damage to the enemy he is pursuing, Drez's attack rating shall be increased by 3% for 5 seconds. This effect can be stacked up to 10 times. So if you are able to stack this up 10 times, he will gain 30% attack rating. But that's only for 5 seconds though. I mean that doesn't seem like a long time to increase attack rating, and I don't think most of the time I don't think you'll be able to stack this up the maximum amount of time. I might be wrong about that, but I just feel like 5 seconds isn't really enough to stack this up 10 times though. We'll just have to see about that one. Yeah, and overall I feel like Drez's engraving is pretty average overall as well. Moving on to Skryeth. Sandstorm. Skryeth creates a sandstorm which lasts for 12 seconds. The sandstorm reduces the accuracy of all enemies by 100 points and haste by 25 while they are standing within the sandstorm. Skryeth deals 20% more damage to enemies that are standing within the sandstorm. Duration is extended up to 15 seconds. So with the first engraving here, looking at the first engraving for Skryeth, enemies now lose 120 accuracy points and 35 haste points. So I feel like that could do something situationally. You're decreasing the accuracy by 20 points. You're adding 20 points to this, and if I look at the haste again, you're decreasing the haste by 35 points, so increasing that by 10 points. I feel like that could do something situationally. We will have to see about Skryeth plus 30 engraving. Looking at this one, Critical Insight raises allies' crit ratings by 0.5 points per second until a maximum of 20 points are reached. Max limit crit rating is increased to 30%, raising crit rating by 0.8% per second. So, looking at this one here, looking at the second one, when the maximum number of crit rating points is reached, Skryeth's attack rating will be increased by 10% points. Which I don't know if that one will really work. Most people use Skryeth for the 5 pull, and he pretty much just dies immediately. I believe people just use him for that sandstorm ability. Yeah, he just pretty much dies immediately after that. So I don't think this one will really work for Skryeth. Overall, Skryeth sounds kind of below average, considering that plus 60. I feel like will be kind of useless. And moving on to Inoki. Born to Lead. Inoki manifests an aura around himself that lasts for 8 seconds. While the aura is present, all allies, including Inoki, have their attack ratings increased by 8%. The damage they receive is reduced by 10%, and the frequency of their normal attacks is increased by 15%. Melee heroes receive an extra increase of 150% for all the preceding attributes. The attack ratings is raised by 10% with that one. So looking at Inoki, Allied melee heroes have their tenacity increased by 15 points while within range. I don't know if this one will really do anything. I don't really know what the tenacity does for heroes. I haven't really looked at tenacity, but I don't know if that one will really do anything for the melee heroes. I don't really know about that one. And looking at the second one, Horn of War, used once at the start of battles, this ability grants allies a protective shield that lasts for 5 seconds, which is able to mitigate damage that is equal to 20% of Inoki's max health. Shield value is equal to 30% of Inoki's max health with level 3. And looking at the engraving, enhance the ability Horn of War, shield duration is increased to 7 seconds. So if I'm looking back at this one, it's only increasing it by 2 seconds. Yeah, and I feel like the shield doesn't really do much either. It's only a value equal to 30% of Inoki's max health, which, in my opinion, isn't a lot really. So yeah, I feel like the Horn of War ability needs to be buffed in order for the engraving to actually work. Overall, I feel like Inoki's isn't really one to build. I feel like this Inoki's engraving will be pretty much useless for anybody that tries to build it. And looking on to Kren, see what Kren's has to offer. Old Pal, at the beginning of battle, Kren fires a flare into the sky, calling in a friend of his who sets down 5 landmines behind the enemy formation at the edge of the battlefield. If an enemy steps on a landmine, it will explode, dealing 300% AoE damage, also stunning enemies for 5 seconds. That damage is increased to 340%. Each landmine that explodes increases Kren's attack rating by 15% up until the end of battle. This ability can be stacked 3 times. So looking at Kren's first engraving here, each time a landmine explodes, Kren will recover 100 energy points. So that actually sounds pretty good. 100 energy points for each time a landmine explodes. I believe he sets down 5 for each hero. And so yeah, it's 5 landmines. So if each enemy hero steps on the landmine, he'll recover a maximum of 500 energy points, which is half his bar. That actually sounds pretty good. If you're able to get all 5 enemies to land on the landmine, even if you only get 1 hero to land on the landmine, he's gaining 100 energy points. So that makes him ult even faster. I mean, and Concussive Blast, Kren charges towards the enemy that is nearest to the allied side of the battlefield and uses Lady to attack them. This attack deals 240% damage to the target and sends them hurling backwards. Kren is also knocked backwards as a result of Lady's force. Damage is increased to 300% at level 3. And with his engraving, while Kren is using this ability, any damage received from enemies, excluding the target, is reduced by 50%. Okay, that actually sounds really good as well. That sounds really good as well. Damage received from enemies is reduced, excluding the target though, is reduced by 50%. So he's able to take less damage when he's using this ability. Which, looking back at the ability, yeah, he's able to take less damage, which that sounds pretty good. That actually sounds pretty good. Overall, Kren's sounds pretty good. That one definitely sounds good right there. And moving on to Thali, we're getting pretty close to the end here with the Maulers. Flame Burst, Thali shoots 3 fireballs in quick succession, dealing 170% damage per fireball. While in a frenzy, fireballs will additionally knock back the enemy and stun them for 3 seconds. Damage is increased to 190%. So looking at the first engraving, the first one, Fireball 3 has a 100% chance to deal a critical strike to the target, and also deals additional damage that is equal to 10% of the health Thali has already lost in battle. So the third fireball that she throws will have 100% chance to deal a critical strike, and also deals additional damage that is equal to 10% of the health that Thali has already lost in battle. So this one's just pretty much going to mainly do more damage, which that one I feel like could do something for Thali. We'll just have to see about that one there. And looking at Pyromancy, at the beginning of battles, Thali casts a spell to sacrifice 35% of her current health to strengthen herself, allowing her to gain between 20 to 50% damage reduction and 10 to 30 life leech points according to the proportion of current health. The spell's power increases the lower Thali's health falls and will be most powerful when her health falls below 40%. While Thali is in a frenzy, the ability will ignore the proportion of current health and will always be at its most powerful state. And Thali may use a maximum increase of 60% damage reduction and 40 life leech points. So looking at her second engraving, 10 seconds after casting Pyromancy, the proportion of current health is ignored, and Thali will always be at her powerful state. So after she casts this ability, after 10 seconds after casting this ability, she'll be at her most powerful state. Which that sounds really good. That sounds really good, actually. If she isn't able to be in her frenzy, that actually sounds really good. So she's able to be at her most powerful state with a maximum of 10 seconds. So yeah, that actually sounds pretty good. Thali's engraving sounds pretty good there. And moving on to the last Mauler hero, this is the newest Mauler hero. They've added Granite. Looking at his stone skin, Granite receives a shield that is able to mitigate damage equal to 280% of his own attack rating, which exists for 6 seconds. Soon afterwards, Granite transfers 50% of the shield value to the most injured ally hero, protecting them for 6 seconds, knocking back any enemies surrounding them in the process. If there are no surviving allies on the battlefield, no shield transfer will take place. The value of shield is increased to 320% of Granite's attack rating. Duration that ally is protected by shield is increased to 8 seconds. So looking at his first engraving skill, the value of the shield is increased to 360% of Granite's attack rating. So looking back at this one, I believe it's at 320, so it's increasing it by 40%, which, in my opinion, shields don't really do anything really for the hero. I feel like they're summoned, and then a couple seconds later, they are just taken down. So yeah, I feel like the shields in general need a buff. Yeah, and so yeah, overall, I feel like this one right now seems pretty average. 40% seems pretty average for that one. Earth and Resilience. At the start of battle, Granite receives a shield that is able to mitigate damage equal to 15% of his max health. The shield is reset once every 12 seconds. And value of shield is raised to equal 25% of max health, and at level 3. When Granite is using his shield, the damage he receives is reduced by 50%. So looking at that second skill, Granite Shield can be reset more frequently the lower his health falls, and can be reset as much as once every 8 seconds. Now I feel like that might be able to do something situationally. You'll be able to reset set the shield more frequently the lower his health falls. I feel like that could do something maybe. But also that might not be able to. I don't know about that one. It might just take some testing to figure out what that one will do. And yeah, that's the last one there. Next one will be the Wilders, but we've already done the Wilders, I believe, so we don't really need to do that. So yeah, this will be pretty much the end of the video. I just wanted to look at the Mauler engravings. If I were to choose one to engrave, it would definitely be Kren. Kren's seems really good. Thali's also seemed pretty good as well. And I can't remember the other hero that I thought was really good as well. But there was another hero in there that I thought was pretty good as well. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, and comment anything you want to see me do in AFK Arena. and I might do it in the future. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later.